From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here. Finding the right employee can be like searching for a needle in a haystack. You craft the perfect job description. You brace yourself for the flood of resumes, some sparkling with promise, others maybe not so much. And then begins the painstaking process of interviews, follow-ups, gut checks. Even at the best of times, it can be exhausting. And Brian Jack went through all that last summer. He's the Chief Information Security Officer at KnowBe4. It's a cybersecurity training company.
We were hiring for a principal software engineer that was going to be writing code and applications on our IT team. Someone who was able to have lots of experience in writing full-stack code.
Full-stack code. Basically, that means being able to write both the part of the application that a user sees or interacts with and the back end, the database and the logic that underpins it.
So we needed someone who was familiar with infrastructure as code, CI/CD pipelines, good software engineering practices, and they could mentor other software engineers.
So someone with technical expertise and leadership. It's a tough combination. Some might call it a unicorn. But here's the thing about unicorns. They don't exist. Or do they?
It was a pretty senior role. It paid really well.
Not just someone senior, someone rare.
Right. It's not that you can find someone with the level of skill set in every resume.
So they posted the job, and then thousands of resumes came in.
We get a couple thousands of resumes per job posting.
And one stood out from someone named Kyle. He had a degree from the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. Check. An Atlanta address. Check. Impeccable coding credentials. Check, check, check.
We're thinking that this guy was going to make a really great employee, a great fit.
And he sailed through the HR process. The interviews, smooth. Phone, Zoom, no red flags. And then he happily signed the job offer, filled out all the paperwork, and the team from KnowBe4 was, well, excited. Then they shipped him out a laptop. Though when they shipped it out, there was this one small thing. Kyle asked KnowBe4 to send the laptop to a different state from the one on his employment form. Odd, but then again, remote work is nomadic, so all systems go. Yay. And then, the night before Kyle's first day, around 9 p.m., an alert sounds on the KnowBe4 network. Something weird was coming into the system from what looked like Kyle's computer. Someone was trying to run code on that new laptop. And it wasn't just any code, it was malicious code. All of a sudden, what started as a routine hire was anything but. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and this is Click Here, a podcast about all things cyber and intelligence. We tell true stories about the people making and breaking our digital world. And today, an employment story, but not the usual kind. These candidates ace the interviews, they land the jobs, they log in like everyone else, but they're not just here to work. They have another boss, and he runs North Korea. Stay with us. Click Here is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company has affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations. This is Click Here. Brian Jack says KnowBe4 is pretty careful about the computers they ship to employees.
When we send our laptops out, they come with our full security software package installed.
So from the moment the computer arrives at its destination and boots up, the folks at KnowBe4 can see what the computer is up to.
Our security software is already monitoring what is going on.
So when Kyle logged on, they could see that. And when the malware was starting to run on that new laptop, they could see that too. And this malware, it wasn't subtle. They could see it searching, scanning for credentials, users, passwords, looking for the kinds of things that hackers look for when they're trying to pry open a company's network.
We don't like to jump to conclusions because you'll end up going down a rabbit hole.
So they began by giving Kyle the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the poor guy's laptop was compromised before he even started. Not exactly the welcome gift you'd want from a new employer.
So our first instinct was to reach out to the individual and ask them what was going on. So we opened up Slack, and the lead of the Security Operations Center reached out to that user and asked them what was going on.
Yeah, sorry, Kyle replied. Just trying to troubleshoot this router. The security team gathered on Slack.
We have an investigations war room that we can fire up when we have an incident.
And they began spitballing a bunch of possible explanations for what they were seeing. And minutes go by. Sorry for the confusion, Kyle writes in Slack. I'm not sure what's going on. So KnowBe4's IT guys do what IT guys do best, the thing we love about IT guys. They offered to take a look.
Well, let us help you. What is your router? What are you trying to configure? What's going on? At this point, if you were, not a spy or a fraud, you would have, of course, accepted this help with open arms. But in this case, this is where he started to shut down.
Kyle said that he was following the router guide. Maybe the link was just bad?
And when we asked them to provide us the link or provide the guide to be helpful, or to hop on a quick voice chat or video chat to help them, that's when we stopped getting responses.
He did finally reply later that night with an apologetic message. He couldn't onboard the next day as planned, he said. His wife was having heart trouble and he needed to take her to the hospital. Only problem was, on all his forms, Kyle had listed himself as single. It was one red flag too many.
And I said, lock the machine.
Lock the machine. As Brian's team dug deeper, the pieces started falling into place. The malicious code wasn't coming from outside the company, it was coming from Kyle's machine, which meant this wasn't an external attack. Kyle, whoever he was the attack. The next morning, HR sent Kyle a notice. They said he was fired. And they also asked for his company laptop back, and they kind of assumed that was gone. After all, it was evidence. But then Kyle surprised them again. He didn't argue.
And they said, no problem, where should we send it?
For all the trouble Kyle had caused, he clearly didn't want to add theft of corporate property to the list.
These laptops aren't cheap, $2,000, $3,000, that's grand theft.
But Brian didn't leave it there. He wanted backup to figure out what really was going on. So they called in some experts. Google's Mandiant. And the case landed on the desk of a guy named Michael Barnhart.
I also go by Barney, and I do a lot of the North Korean operations over at Mandiant.
Michael's job is hunting the world's most elusive hackers, like North Korea's APTs. APT, Advanced Persistent Threat. It's a fancy way of saying nation-state hacker. And Michael had a unique way of keeping track of them all. He tattoos their names on his body, specifically his foot.
I got a tattoo of the APT-43. I got that on my foot with our unit name on it. And I'll keep doing it on this one foot is dedicated to North Korean APTs, apparently.
Okay. Nothing like an ankle of justice, I always say. Michael and his ankle of justice took a deep dive into Kyle's laptop, analyzed the malware, and came back with a bombshell. Kyle wasn't a coder from Atlanta, he told Brian.
You actually hired a guy from North Korea. Everybody's mind was blown.
They guessed that Kyle was up to something fishy, but they hadn't even begun to imagine that he might be North Korean. This was just the beginning of their questions. Then who exactly was Kyle? He didn't appear to be North Korean in their interviews, and why would their relatively small company be targeted for something like this? It turned out they weren't alone.
A U.S. citizen in North Carolina is accused of working with North Korea.
Nashville man is accused of trying to help North Korea.
An Arizona woman has been indicted in a series of complex identity theft cases, generating money for the North Korean government.
It's a whole program dreamed up by Pyongyang to get around sanctions and funnel money and stolen data back to the regime. And the sanctions aren't just a U.S. thing. Even the United Nations bans member states from hiring North Korean workers because, the Security Council says, the government uses these workers to raise money for North Korean Kim Jong-un's weapons program. When we come back, we'll explain how this scam works. Stay with us. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. In a society that glorifies hyper-independence, it's easy to forget that we're all better when we have a support system behind us. Therapy can be a source of support for any area of your life. BetterHelp is making therapy more affordable and convenient. BetterHelp is fully online, serves over 5 million people worldwide, and provides access to a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties. Build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/click here to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/click here.
Hi, I'm Morgan Sung, host of Close All Tabs from KQED, where every week we reveal how the online world collides with everyday life.
You don't know what's true or not because you don't know if AI was involved in it.
So my first reaction was, haha, this is so funny. And my next reaction was, wait a minute, I'm a journalist. Is this real?
And I think we will see a Twitch streamer president maybe within our lifetimes.
You can find Close All Tabs wherever you listen to podcasts.
From Recorded Future News, this is Click Here. I'm Dina Temple-Rest. While being on the receiving end of a North Korean hacking scheme seemed surreal to Brian and his team at KnowBe4, to Michael Barnhart at Mandiant, it all made perfect sense. North Korea has been strangled by global sanctions for years, so they've devised all these workarounds, including running a whole secret undercover IT workforce. Post-COVID, there are still lots of people working remotely, which is great if you know your employees and have met him, but leaves companies vulnerable to fraudsters, or North Koreans, who might not be so honest.
You can find on these leak sites on the dark web, all these different passports, all these different driver's licenses. They go there and then they'll start altering those. This is a criminal enterprise, so you got to think of it like a mob movie at times. You have the guy, you got the getaway driver, and you've got the English speaker, and you've got the resume builder. Everyone has these different parts to play.
Sometimes they get help from a real human outside of North Korea, a Westerner who's willing to act like they're applying for a job in exchange for a kickback once the North Koreans land the work. Michael says the North Koreans tend to go for tech gigs, things like animators or coders, because you don't need to be in an office to do them, and you can juggle multiple jobs and no one's the wiser.
We see guys with up to 5, 6, 7 jobs, and they're holding all at once. And you see them lean into scripting. You see them leaning to automation and AI to help. They're making little tiny bots of themselves to go do work at these other places.
Yes, little AI assistants, little digital minions, helping them scale up and collect more paychecks. It's a numbers game. The more jobs you land, the more money flows back to North Korea, and the happier you make the supreme leader. If you've ever wondered how a country that can't even feed its own people can afford such a sophisticated missile program, it's partly because of schemes like this. Kim uses money from their many Kyles to pay for it all. As a general matter, there are two ways these North Korean IT warriors get hired. Sometimes they apply directly, with fake names and stolen identities like we talked about before. Mandiant reviewed some of their resumes, and they do look like they belong to someone you'd want to hire, which, of course, is the point. There are glowing testimonials from CEOs who never wrote them, images swiped from unsuspecting LinkedIn profiles, lengthy lists of hard-to-find skills. And then there's this second approach. Find an American, maybe somebody struggling to find a job, and turn them into a kind of Trojan IT guy that makes it look like these North Korean workers are actually working from someplace local, like North Carolina or Georgia.
It definitely needs to look like it's coming from where I said I lived. I'm going to purchase a person. I'm going to recruit them on XYZ, job platform. Say, hey, I'll give you a couple $1,000. I need you to sit in on meetings randomly.
This isn't a tough job. Basically, it just requires this facilitator to keep a laptop running. Lots of laptops, actually. They even have a name for this. It's called a laptop farm.
A guy can sit there and plug in 10, 12, 90 laptops in some cases into his house. And then for every laptop, you get $500.
It's easy to imagine someone just has to set up these laptops that companies like KnowBe4 send their new remote Kyles for work, and then they get software that makes it look like the mouse is always moving, so it looks like someone is working around the clock. And Bob's your uncle. And that's probably how it happened at KnowBe4. An IT guy calling himself Kyle applied. Maybe it was in the US, maybe he wasn't, but chances are he had help. An American facilitator, someone running one of those laptop farms. And here's the kicker. These people who are running these laptop farms might not even know they're working for North Korea. To them, it's just easy money.
There's a predetermined agreement saying, hey, you get this much. So anytime a paycheck came in for $1,200, he's like, all right, I'm going to take $120 out of that. And then the rest of it will magically disappear. It's been funneled back.
But it's not just about cash. These IT hires often get access to sensitive company information, data that can be sold on the dark web or used by North Korean hackers to extort money from these unsuspecting companies. And these workers, they're not always sitting in North Korea.
And it's not just Russia and China. You have Cambodia, Laos, even all the way as far out as Africa.
Sanctions make it harder for North Korea to move money, so they typically route it through places with fewer restrictions, places with better internet, more layers to hide the trail. And sometimes these workers aren't even willing participants to all of this. They're forced to do it.
It really is kind of a modern day indentured servant type of situation that they have. Because these guys, they're not happy. They don't seem like they're having a very good life, a lot of them. It seems very, very stressful. They're working, all hours of the night. It's kind of sad.
KnowBe4 is just one of many companies unwittingly caught up in this North Korean program. One case brought by the FBI last year involved 300 companies and 60 stolen identities. It all happened over 6 years, and some $90 million was rerouted to North Korea. FBI Special Agent Ashley Johnson said it isn't just a hacking operation.
It could impact our national security if we have money going back to another government that forms any type of program or funds any type of program that could then be used against us adversarially.
This is Agent Johnson speaking at a news conference announcing the indictments. And she says that any company that hires remote IT workers should be concerned.
More likely than not, you have hired or at least interviewed a North Korean national work in behalf of the North Korean government.
9 months after KnowBe4's brush with Kyle, Brian says there's been a bit of a crackdown.
So our CEO told the hiring team, listen, now you guys have been provided the tools. You know what to look out for. You know this is a thing. You're all fired if it happens again.
And Brian says now he knows what to look for, the telltale signs of a North Korean on the make.
There's kind of these email addresses that you can tell the format, or they'll use certain keywords like cool or ninja or .dev, or then they add some numbers at the end, like they will add either a date like 1957. It's just, you'll start to see that there's a pattern where those terms are used more frequently in North Korean IT workers.
And if the applicants include images, he checks the metadata, location tags, little telltale signs of Photoshop. And using this new approach, he actually just spotted a suspicious applicant a few weeks ago. He decided to interview the guy just to see what he could learn, and he shared the recording of the interview with us.
I feel strong alignment with what your team is doing. Yeah. And I also appreciate the company culture.
I have strong alignment with your team. I appreciate the company culture. Charming, if a bit robotic. Then Brian asked them how they feel about using AI for security. And the answer?
So as I can say I'm a big fan of OpenAI.
I'm a big fan of OpenAI. Brian is still getting those suspicious resumes.
They have brought 2 or 3 to me in the last couple of months. I said, we're not going to interview this person, but just so you know, I think this resume that I just looked at is North Korean IT worker. And I'll go and I'll look at it and I'll confirm it. And I'll be like, you guys, you got it. Like, you're dialed in now. This is excellent.
Hiring used to just be about finding the right candidate. Now, it's also about spotting the ones who aren't really candidates at all. This is Click Here.
Looking for more of the cybersecurity and intelligence coverage you get on Click Here? Then check out our sister publication, The Record, from Recorded Future News. You'll get breaking cyber news from reporters in New York, Washington, London, and Kyiv, among others. And you'll see for yourself why it attracts hundreds of thousands of page views every month. Just go to therecord.media.
Today is Tuesday, March 4th. And here are some of the top cyber and intelligence stories of the past week. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has ordered U.S. Cyber Command to stop all cyber operational planning against Russia. That was first reported by Martin Matashak at our sister publication, The Record. For years now, Russia has been launching cyber operations against the U.S. and its longtime allies. The new order from Hegseth to stand down comes as President Donald Trump appears to be changing U.S. policy toward Russia and reestablishing ties with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The order came before the fiery back and forth between Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
It's unclear if NSA operators have to stop their collection on Russia, too.
Crypto exchange Bybit says that it fully recovered after falling victim to the largest crypto heist on record.
Last week, the cryptocurrency exchange Bybit revealed that hackers had managed to steal some $1.4 billion worth of Ethereum-based assets. A heist that may make the theft the largest in crypto history. The FBI has said that North Korean hackers are behind it and managed to plant malware that allowed them to steal the money. The crypto tracing firm TRM Labs said last week that some $400 million in those funds may have already been successfully laundered and liquidated. A suspected Belarusian state-backed hacking group is behind a cyber espionage campaign targeting Ukrainian military and government officials. That's according to a new report. Researchers from the cybersecurity firm SentinelOne say they've linked the operation to the Ghostwriter hacking group. The report, published on Tuesday, doesn't specify the goal of the campaign, but Ghostwriter is primarily known for cyber espionage and is closely tied to the Belarusian intelligence agency. In the past, it has targeted government, military, and civilian entities in Ukraine and Europe. And finally, the end of an era. After 14 years of that familiar ring, Microsoft has decided to pull the plug on Skype. Before there was FaceTime and Zoom and WhatsApp calls, Skype allowed the world to make voice and video calls over the internet, and it changed the way the world communicated because it was connecting people around the world when international calls were still really expensive. Skype will shut down in May and will be replaced by Microsoft Teams. Skype users will be able to seamlessly roll their contacts into Teams when it actually happens. Bye, Skype. We'll miss you.
Today's episode was produced by Zach Hirsch, Megan Dietrich, Erica Gaida, Sean Powers, and Dina Temple-Raston. It was edited by Karen Duffin, fact-checked by Darren Ankrum, and contains original music by Ben Livingston with some other music from Blue Dot Sessions. Our staff writer is Lucas Riley, and our illustrator is Megan Goff. Martin Peralta is our sound designer and engineer. Click Here is a production of Recorded Future News and PRX. Tune in on Friday for Mic Drop, which features our favorite interview of the week. We'll have a new episode of Click Here on Tuesday. We'll see you then.
Looking for more of the cybersecurity and intelligence coverage you get on Click Here? Then check out our sister publication, The Record, from Recorded Future News. You'll get breaking cyber news from reporters in New York, Washington, London, and Kyiv, among others. And you'll see for yourself why it attracts hundreds of thousands of page views every month. Just go to therecord.media.